Hey, let's review the games for this weekend. And evidently, the Rays are not going to go 162-0. This is Locked On MLB.
You are Locked On MLB. Your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. How do you know that's true? Well, I have a lower third. Where is it? It's right there. You can call me Sully. I am an Emmy-nominated television producer who has been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade now, and I have been part of the Locked On Podcast Network for the past 5 seasons. You can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and on Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And hey, if you want to subscribe to us on YouTube, please do so. Leave comments. I'm going to start reading some of your comments on an episode coming up this week. And hey, let's also, if you're listening to us all the time, if you're an everyday listener, let me know when you write a comment or something. Write hashtag, where is it? Where did it go there? There it is. Hashtag Everyday Sully. Everyday Sully. Hashtag Everyday Sully. Just so I know who's there every day. You know, some of you drop in and out. Some of you take a look at what team we're covering, but some of you there. And some of you have been listening since the old show, Sully Baseball Daily. So if some of you have come over from that is fantastic. So, hey, I'm dropping this on Sunday night. I'm recording this part of it on Friday night. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the games over the weekend. You know, let's just talk about everything that's been going on. And, of course, the big story that happened on Friday was that, hey, as I teased, the Tampa Bay Rays did something they haven't done all year long, which is lose. They got doubled up by the Toronto Blue Jays in Toronto. And George Springer hit a home run. The big star was Bo Bichette. It always sounds like I'm saying Boba Fett when I say his name. Bo Bichette went 5 for 5. And it looked like there was a period where the Rays were going to come back. But it was really just a disastrous 5th inning where, you know, Rasmussen started to lose control. The bullpen walked in a few runs. The Jays put up a 4 spot. And the Rays just couldn't get that big inning to sort of blast open the doors. And so with that, I mean, look at the Rays have played 14 games and have won 13 of them. That's pretty good. And the Rays are going to continue to be a quality team. I picked them to be a playoff team. But here's the interesting thing that happens when there's all this attention being put on Tampa Bay, how many games did they win? Oh my God, they're beating this team, that team, and the other thing is when that storyline ends and the dust clears, and now the Rays are 13-1, obviously an excellent record. They probably like the fact that the Yankees have lost the last couple of games. They have a 4-game cushion over Toronto, a 5-game cushion over Baltimore, and the Yankees. By the way, Adley Rutschman got another big hit for Baltimore. Words out, he's pretty good. They have a little bit of a cushion right now, so that they could they may be able to withstand a few, games here that they lose and have a normal, very good season. But when that story ends, and it did, this winning streak's over. Now they're merely a good team. An interesting thing happens, and that is you start to look around and it's like, oh, while I've been paying attention to Tampa, I've not seen some of these other teams who have got off to terrific starts. Maybe not a 13-1 start. But I mentioned the Yankees. They're off to a decent start. They're 8-6 right now. But they lost back-to-back games to the Minnesota Twins, a team that they have beaten like a piñata for the last bunch of years. And they've lost 2 games to them Thursday and Friday night in completely opposite manner. They got the doors blown off. And I think it was 11-2, 11-1, whatever the final score is. And my mom would say the final score was a lot to not enough. And it was just it was a bloodbath on Thursday. on Friday, it was a close game, and they brought in, they went to the bullpen, and Carlos Correa got the big hit, which was a 2-run double into the right field corner, and the Twins held on to win by 1 run. So they won in a blowout. They won in a come-from-behind victory. And with that, the Twins have won 10 of their first 14 games. And that's real good and real important for the Minnesota Twins, a team that I picked to win the division. Obviously, good things have happened to the Twins since they reacquired, or I think they didn't reacquire him. I guess they just kept Carlos Correa after he signed with every other team in baseball. It was important for them to get off to a good start. As I said in a Brewers show we did a few days ago, the Brewers needed to get out to a big start so they didn't tear the team down. The Twins had to get off to a great start to take the bad taste of their mouth out of their disastrous September that they had last year. Now they're off to a good, solid start. Yes, Cleveland's off to a winning record as well. And of course, it's too early to be checking the standings. But when you see you're winning games at a rapid clip, and most importantly, winning games against some good teams. The Twins have lost to the Yankees left and right over the last bunch of years. They went into the Bronx, and if the worst case scenario is they split a 4-game series, which if I polled 10 million Twins fans, 10 million Twins fans would take a series split with the Yankees in a 4-game series. Now that's a worst case scenario. So the Twins getting off to a good start is worth noting. So are the Atlanta Braves. The Braves, who, of course, have won the division the last bunch of years, much to the dismay of the Mets. And the Mets made just mincemeat out of Oakland, who, by the way, kept pitching. For the second game, they brought in Perez, their backup catcher. Can we just say this? We can't have position players being regular pitchers, okay? This is something we got to get to. We've been dealing with other rule changes and everything like that. I'll get to that in a second, but it used to be a fun novelty seeing a position player pitch. Now it's part of the strategy, and that's weird. Anyway, the 1973 World Series reunion between the Mets and the A's resulted in another A's loss. And, man, one of my early season predictions that the A's were going to be better than people thought they were going to be challenging them. That's really not coming true right now, as they've lost 10 of their first 13 games. But I digress. The Mets won, but the Braves won again. And like their counterparts in the 1991 World Series, like the Twins, the Braves have won 10 out of their first 14 games. And today they hit 5 home runs. Count them, 5 home runs in their victory. Acuna Jr., Riley, I've lost track. But the Braves, the Braves bats were on fire, and in their victory over the Kansas City Royals, the Royals aren't that great, but they got to win those games. Charlie Morton wound up winning the game, and it was a tremendous start for the Braves so far. The Milwaukee Brewers, the aforementioned Milwaukee Brewers, had another win. They've also won 10 of their first 14 games. And I have mentioned the Brewers getting off to the solid start and how important that is. Tellez hit a home run tonight. Christian Yelich hit a big home run tonight. And that was against San Diego. An 11-2 blowout of San Diego in San Diego. After winning the dramatic extra inning game on Thursday night, they blew the doors off the dump on Friday. This is one of those series like the Twins series. When you take a look at this on the schedule and say, oh, man, that's going to be a tough series for the Twins in Yankee Stadium. That's going to be a tough series for the Milwaukee Brewers in San Diego. It's important for the Brewers to continue winning at a solid clip, especially against good teams like San Diego. And like the splitting the series with Yankee Stadium, the Brew Crew know, worst case scenario, they're splitting a series on the road in San Diego. All they got to do is win either Saturday or Sunday. They've won a 4-game series against them. Positive starts, important for teams like this. And interestingly, the Diamondbacks lost. Why am I bringing up the fact that the Diamondbacks, who did they lose to again? Hold on, I got to check the score here. Cardinals won an important game as they're trying to keep the Pirates at at an arm distance. Why am I losing the Diamondbacks? Oh, they lost to the Marlins. That's right. Important game for the Marlins that Rogers pitched well. They need Rogers to pitch well in order to be the wild card contender that I think they're going to be. But they won 5-1. Madison Bumgarner had another terrible game. I wonder if he'd make a good lefty reliever because he's certainly not cutting it as a starter anymore. But even with the loss to Miami by the Diamondbacks, as of this recording, are the only National League West team with a winning record. Now, again, we're only 2 weeks into the season, but keep that in mind towards the end of the year. Keep that in mind when I believe Los Angeles and San Diego will be fighting for the division title. If Arizona is still there, great, good for them. But if the division title is separated by 1 or 2 or 3 games, look back at this opening. Look back at this start when LA, with all their expectations, and San Diego, with all their spending, got through the first 2 weeks of the season. LA break even, San Diego 1 game under 500. When you look back and if you see 1 game is going to separate those two, remember the fact that they both got out of the gate sluggish. This is the importance of the getting out to a good start. You don't get these games back. You don't. Try to get off to a good start so you have something to build on instead of coming from behind. Also, just a couple other quick things. You saw the Red Sox were wearing their weird yellow uniforms again, but they won with Rafi Devers hitting a big home run. I mentioned Adley Rutschman homered in the Orioles victory. The Guardians took a 4-3 win over the Washington Nationals. And the Rangers remain in first place. They beat the Astros on the road. Again, another important game. You circle it. And we talked about this with Bryce Patrick, that this is a test game for the Texas Rangers. When you look on the schedule and you see the Astros are there, the consensus pick to win the American League pennant again. Sully, they have a lot of injuries. Who cares? Still got to win these games. And so far, some of these teams have met the test, especially Texas with their victory over Houston, especially Milwaukee with their victory over San Diego, and especially Minnesota with their victory over the New York Yankees. And hey, tip your hat to Toronto, who also has images of a division title dancing in their head. They wound up winning a game against Tampa Bay, something that just a couple of days ago didn't seem possible. All right, that's a recap of Friday. After the ad break, let's talk about what happened on Saturday. You know, I don't. Okay, let's say a little bit about Pro Baseball GM, the ultimate Pro Baseball GM. It is the most fun I've ever had creating my own team in my own league. And this is something I've been doing ever since I was a kid. I've been having my own leagues and acted like a GM with my baseball cards and Stratomatic and Pursue the Pennant and all these other things I played with, but nothing tops Pro Baseball GM. And because of the details, it allows you to manage every aspect of a franchise, playing through seasons, leading your franchise. Mine team is called the Honolulu Waves, and we actually won a game yesterday. We don't look that good because it's harder than you think, but it's a lot of fun when you put together the right coaches, the right staff, you manage the team finances, you scout and you draft players, you manage through difficult personalities and injuries, and you navigate your franchise through free agency and the ups and downs of a season. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Baseball GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go. Play as you want. Play wherever you want to. Locked On MLB listeners get a 100% free boost to the franchise when using promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit probaseballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up in the app stores. That's probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today. Hey, everyone. We're going to review the Saturday games, but I have to apologize. I had an issue with my microphone and I came out a little bit muffled. I don't know what happened. So I'm just telling you right now, I did my best to boost the sound. It's going to sound a little bit different. Sundays came out just fine. So I apologize for the little bit of a technical issue we had on this particular episode. But with no further ado, here I am talking about Saturday's games.
All right, right now it's Sunday morning. The Saturday games are over, and it was Jackie Robinson Day, and it's really one of the best traditions we have in baseball. Relatively new tradition when you think about it. It really started, the retiring of Jackie's number across baseball was in '97, and at first it was just one or two people wearing 42. Remember, there was resistance to having everybody wear 42, and the logic behind it. There were players like Mo Vaughn wore number 42 his whole career. And like one person would wear 42 in honor of Jackie. I remember Ken Griffey Jr. did in the game when he was with the Seattle Mariners. And someone had the idea, why don't we have everyone wear 42? And the thing that blows my mind is that when that was first suggested, there was resistance because people said it would make it less special. And I thought, and other people thought, well, wait a minute. If just one person is wearing 42, it doesn't stick out. If everybody is, then it does stick out. It does look into it. Why are they all wearing 42? Starts a conversation piece, and all of a sudden more people learn about who the heck Jackie Robinson is. And learning that history, learning the strife that he went through, why he went through the strife, the reasons he went through the strife, and understanding some of the things that have improved racially since 1947, but some of the things we still have to work on since 1947. We're not done. I think everyone can see we're not done. And so anything that starts that conversation from a point of positivity is something good and something we need. And it's always appropriate. Like I went to the 75th anniversary of Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier, and it was the 25th anniversary of retiring his number across baseball. And I was at Dodger Stadium, and 100-year-old, actually she was 99-year-old, Rachel Robinson, the widow of Jackie, was there. She's still with us. She's 100 years old. And I'm so thrilled that she was there. She waved to the crowd and everything like that. When you're 99, I'm not expecting a heck of a lot. And she got out of the golf cart and waved to everybody. I had tears in my eyes. I'm not going to lie. And she's still with us now. Still work to do. And it's a great tradition that we have in baseball that we do that. And maybe it's appropriate that the Dodgers won their game. They won on a 2-out walk-off hit in the bottom of the ninth inning, 2-run walk-off hit, and it was a 2-1 victory. It was a well-pitched game on both ends, but it was a David Peralta got the game-winning hit. Now it's a great moment. It was in Dodger Stadium. They played Randy Newman. Blah blah blah. There was let's just say David Ross, the manager of the Cubs, didn't handle things as well as you could. Made a couple bullpen blunders, and next thing you know, Peralta isn't walked, setting up force plays. He's pitched to, he gets the game-winning hit, and Cub fans are grabbing their pitchforks and grabbing their torches. And I can't lie to you. Ross has been there for 2020, 21, 22. This is his fourth season. And yes, he was a manager during the teardown, and I can't blame him for the teardown. But also, I have seen nothing from this Cubs team, which does have some talent on it. There are still major leaguers on this team. And, when I see just bungling from the bullpen, and this is not, and you talk to Cub fans, this is not any isolated incident. Line up your shots, everybody. Line up your shots. Get ready to do a drink, because I'm going to say it. Bruce Bochy is now the manager of the Texas Rangers. The Texas Rangers, as of this recording, are overachieving. His two lieutenants, who were on his coaching staff for not one, not two, but 3 World Series titles. At least 2 of them featured a gigantic upset. The 2010 Giants upset the Phillies. The 2014 Giants were an 87-win team, and the road team in the wild card game wound up winning the World Series. Both of them were managed flawlessly by Bruce Bochy. And his lieutenants, Roberto Kelly and Hensley Mullins, are not major league managers, even though they're overqualified for a first job. David Ross gets handed the car keys, got a few years. I've seen nothing about it. Maybe David Ross will become a good manager. I don't know, but he doesn't seem to be one now. And sometimes you see instances where a manager manages one place, it doesn't quite work out, and they learn from their mistakes, they manage somewhere else. They hit a reset button, they do fine. Terry Francona is a perfect example of that. Joe Torre is a perfect example of that. There are other people along the lines. There are Hall of Fame managers out there whose first gig wasn't a huge success. They turn things around. Not everyone's going to be Dusty Baker and win 100-some-odd games their first year as a manager. Fine. But there's nothing about David Ross that gives me confidence if I'm a Cubs fan and they've been handing him the car keys. And if we look up right now, this makes it additionally frustrating. Yeah, okay, fine. The Cubs are 7-6 right now. Fine. I don't think Ross is the right guy. And we've seen St. Louis get off to a clunky start. And it's Milwaukee and Pittsburgh who seems to be the ones taking advantage of it. But Sully, if Milwaukee loses today and the Cubs win, the Cubs are only one better. I don't care. We've all seen that he's not a great manager, yet he still has the car keys. All right. I don't get why we've had so many managerial changes over the last few years, and Mullins and Kelly can't sniff a win, but I'm going to keep banging the drum. Hey, why was Domingo Germán allowed to keep pitching when he had substance on his glove or hand or whatever the heck it was? And why wasn't he told to skedaddle, instead was able to keep mowing down the Twins? I mean, look, I think the Twins are winning that game anyway, but still, why was he still on the mound there? Someone explain that to me. Someone else explained to me how it's possible that a catcher could have not 1, but 2 catcher interference calls in the same inning. I don't know if you saw that, but in the just absolutely bizarre game between the Red Sox and the Angels, in one of which Trout got his 3 hits and Ohtani went 2 for 4 and all the stuff that you would expect to happen, and the Angels were up 4-0 before the Red Sox even came to bat because of an Urshela grand slam. But Thaiss, is that Matt Thaiss? Is that how you pronounce his name? I don't know. I know he was a big prospect at one point, and twice in the same inning got called for catcher interference. Those 2 runners got on base, and that turned into the Red Sox game-winning rally. As a lifelong Red Sox fan and New Englander, I'm not protesting, but at some point, bring the catcher's mask back. There were 3 catcher interference calls in the game. It was just 2 in the same rally. That was just an interesting, look at the Red Sox are a strange team because there's some points they look like a solid team and maybe they're going to score a bunch of runs. The next thing you know, they'll lose a bunch of games that they have no business losing to. But anyway, pull the old glove back if you're a catcher. Remember the A's started the season 1-0, and I thought they were going to be a scrappy team. They were going to catch some people off guard. I'm starting to think that prediction was kind of wrong. Their run differential is already in the negative 60s, and they don't look like a major league team, and there's nobody there, and it's getting kind of sad. I'll go to a whole A's run, but they got clobbered by the Mets on Friday. They lost a heartbreaker on Saturday. This is a 100-loss team, and it's sad. It's sad. What else do you want me to say? The Blue Jays beat the Rays again. Kikuchi, look at that. Dust him off. He won a game. and that means a 2-game losing streak for the Rays. So they're obviously the Rays are done. That's a joke. Couple things there was a couple big walk-offs. If the Giants want to look back at a season that got away, they'll see 2 games. One where they were leading in extra innings with 2 outs and then let up a walk-off home run on Friday. Another one where they're up 6-1 to a Tigers team that's probably going to lose 90-some-odd games, and they allowed a walk-off by ancient Miguel Cabrera, no less. They'll look back to these couple games like, yeah, those are 2 that got away. Something bad is happening with the Giants, and I wonder if Gabe Kapler should soon belong with David Ross as former Red Sox World Series champion reserves who can't manage. I'm not going to say Dave Roberts yet. Man's won a World Series title, and they've been winning some games. Pirates won again, extra innings, a game that they were losing late. And you're seeing that the Padres are starting to win again, so they're creeping back into it. The Brewers are still in, they absolutely clobbered the Brewers 10-3. And the D-backs and the Dodgers are now at the top of the West, and the Astros wound up beating up the Rangers 8-2. So some things are starting to gel in the way that we thought they were. The Astros are getting their act together. Dodgers are starting to win some games. And you're starting to see some of the teams you're expecting to win sort of dust themselves off. The interesting teams for me are the ones that are still near the top in ways that we're not expecting. So we're going to see if the Pirates just had a good couple weeks to start the season or if they're for real. We're going to see Arizona, see if they just got off to a nice little start or if they're for real. And we're going to have to see, Texas. They have a chance to still win the series against Houston. They got to do that today on Sunday.
Our new sponsor, So Rare, is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 teams. Unlike other fantasy baseball platforms, So Rare managers truly own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with player cards against global opponents to win epic rewards. Win or lose, you still own your cards, and there's no cost to play. Plus, the more you win, the more you advance, collecting increasingly powerful cards and accessing next-level competitions and rewards. So Rare has recently partnered with baseball stars Juan Soto and Julio Rodriguez, who should be Major League All-Stars this year, to serve as brand ambassadors. Both are featured in So Rare's current brand campaign and will engage with the So Rare community throughout the season at MLB events. MLB game weeks happen twice weekly in a span of a 3 to 4 day cycle. At the end of game weeks, So Rare managers who rank at or near the top of their leaderboards win a variety of rewards, which can include So Rare scarcity cards, game tickets, merchandise, signed jersey, and VIP experiences like meeting stars. Prizes may depend on their competition. So head to sorare.com/lockedon. That's spelled SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today. All right, the Sunday games are over. The weekend games are over. The Rangers game ended against Houston. Marcus Semien got that big, huge grand slam. And hey, good for the Texas Rangers coming in and winning that series against the Houston Astros. I know this is the refrain I keep saying. These games count just as much now as they do at the end of the year. And if the Rangers are still going to hang around and try to do something this year, like Bryce Patrick wants them to do, well, winning head-to-head games in Houston can only help. And this was decisive against Framber Valdez, the guy I picked to win the American League Cy Young Award. I think I did. I got to look at my picks. I picked him to be a contender at least. But, the Rangers, got the big hits when they needed to. And right now they're sitting on top of the American League West. The Astros lost that series. And, they're never going to be in last place because the A's are just so awful. But, that was good for the Rangers getting to this point where you're winning these games you're supposed to win. Man, the A's and the Mets played an extra inning game. The 1973 A's were there because the 1973 A's won the World Series, and they beat the Mets in 1973. So it was nice to have that reunion there. There is no way anyone can convince me that if Joe Rudy and Reggie Jackson and Bert Campaneris and Rollie Fingers and anyone else who was there played, they would have a comparable record played now in their current state in 2023. They would be within the margin of error as good as the Oakland A's. The A's played well. You know, they got a well-pitched game from J.P. Sears. They took the lead in the 8th inning, and then Alonso hit a game-tying home run for the Mets. But then the A's put runners on first and second in the 9th inning and hit I forget who it was on the A's, forgive me. I don't think the A's know who's on the A's right now. But Brandon Nimmo made a sliding catch, beautiful sliding catch to save the game. And then the Mets, of course, scored in the top, and the A's can score in the bottom. It was a clean sweep. The A's have lost 9 of their last 10 games. They've lost 13 of their first 16 games. And the Mets are on a 4-game winning streak. So, hey, Mets winning the games they're supposed to win. If this is how it's going to end in Oakland, I just find it kind of sad. I'm not going to lie to you. The Braves are probably the hottest team in baseball. They won against in a back and forth game with Kansas City. Again, the Royals aren't that good a team, but the Braves win when they're supposed to win, so they're on a 6-game winning streak. But there were a lot of really good starting pitching performances on Sunday. There was a classic pitchers duel took place between San Diego and Milwaukee, two teams that have images of division titles dancing in their head. And Wade Miley pitched 7 shutout innings. Yu Darvish pitched 7 innings, allowed only 1 run. He struck out 12 batters, and the Padres won that game 1-0. The Brewers won that game 1-0, leaving the Padres with the bases loaded. Big game for for when you have 2 playoff contenders. Again, the Brewers went into San Diego, a bunch of people picked to win the pennant, and did a good job and won the series. Meanwhile, Zach Gallen of Arizona against Miami and Sandy Alcantara. Sandy Alcantara again had a disappointing game. He struck out 9 and walked none, but he let up 4 runs, and Gallen pitched shutout ball into the 7th inning. And as of this recording, the Diamondbacks are in first place. And part of that is because the Cubs hit back-to-back home runs and against Julio Urias, and wound up winning the series against LA. So there you go. There was some more, and there was some other good pitching performances. And in fact, the highlights of the pitching performances took place in the American League. Gerrit Cole threw a complete game shutout, 2-hit shutout. This is great news for the New York Yankees. Fantastic news for the New York Yankees, because Gerrit Cole has been pitching like an ace. Gerrit Cole is pitching now like the pitcher that they thought they were getting. Now, if it means he found some spider tack or whatever, good for him, because the Yankees need to have a pitcher like this. And it's amazing when you see that there were, Cole pitched a complete game. Luis Castillo had a perfect game deep into that. Another 1-0 game. The Mariners over Colorado 1-0. Garrett Whitlock pitched 7 innings for the Red Sox in another tight game, 2-1. Super sloppy game by the Angels, which we'll get into that. Tomorrow's show, our good friend Miller Thomas is going to be on to do a crossover, and I have a lot of things to say about the Angels and how the fundamentals of that team are just awful. But Cole complete game, Castillo 7 innings, Whitlock 7 innings. Reed Detmers, who pitched the game for the Angels, pitched very, very well. He pitched into the 7th inning. He got a hard luck loss in there. I mentioned the National League pitchers where you had Miley pitched 7 innings. Darvish pitched 7 innings. Gallen pitched into the 7th inning. What does this mean for those teams? That means they handed their ball to a good pitcher and they didn't blow out the bullpen. I understand the COVID season kind of threw a wrench into how people handle their pitching staffs. I get that to a degree, but it's been a couple of years since then. Okay? The fact of the matter is this. You let the pitchers go a little bit longer, you don't blow the bullpen out. The whole thing about we got to pull our pitchers after 5 innings, that means you're going to be using the same pitchers over and over. And then we get in those situations where you see utility infielders and backup catchers pitching, which I am kind of sort of sick of. That should be a novelty that happens maybe by 1 or 2 teams once a year instead of a legitimate strategy. There was good pitching. We're going deep into the games. That's kind of smart, isn't it? I like to think so. Anyway, interesting games, interesting pitching matchups, and the big hit by Marcus Semien sort of blew the game open for the Texas Rangers, who are holding their own. Just a quick look at who owned baseball. I mentioned Gerrit Cole with his complete game shutout. I mentioned Marcus Semien with his back-breaking 2-out, 2-strike grand slam. I mentioned Wade Miley with his wonderful pitching performance against the Padres. Yaimer Candelario went 4 for 5 with a home run. The Nationals beat Cleveland. All right, Cleveland. Hope you don't regret that one. Half wobs. I mentioned Reed Detmers, who pitched well for the Angels. I mentioned Yu Darvish, who pitched well for San Diego. Mookie Betts got on base 4 times. Had a very good game for the Dodgers, but they lost 3-2. And Gavin Sheets singled and homered. The White Sox lost the game to the Orioles. So tomorrow morning, we are going to see it's at 8 o'clock in the morning here in California, the Patriots Day game. Miller Thomas is going to be on the show, and we're going to be talking about some of the kind of the traditions that we're seeing in baseball, and the sometimes local traditions, sometimes specific new traditions in baseball. I love the Patriots game tradition. I love the Jackie Robinson Day tradition. There are other things I really think are really cool that are sort of regional and fun parts of baseball. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, I'm going to bring up which managers right now should be a little nervous. Even some managers who are hovering around 500 are not necessarily having a disastrous start. I don't think Mark Kotsay of the A's should be fired. He doesn't have a team around him. But there are a couple of managers for some very high-profile teams with a lot of attention on them, 2 specifically that I think, it's not working. So we're going to talk about that a little bit tomorrow. But hope you enjoyed. There's a fun little look around what happened this weekend. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and on Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Reviewing the weekend and some of the big hits, some of the bad plays, some of the really good pitching. This has been Locked On MLB for the 17th day of April 2023. Happy Patriots Day. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.